Why are you dedicated to helping men?
Well, I think most of us, whatever our wound is in the world, we tend to turn it into a gift if we're lucky later on in life. And I grew up in the 70s, 70s and 80s with, my father bailed when I was quite young. My grandfathers died when I was young. And so I had really no male role models. My stepfather was killed when I was 10. You know what I mean? Like, it just was a really tragic experience with men at a young age. I got sober when I was 29 and fell into a group of men who I met with pretty much every day for almost 10 years at lunch. And we would have lunch, we'd talk about life, and we'd support each other. And that was my introduction into what it was like to be held by a group of men. I really was blessed to find men in my life that filled that father wound. And not everybody gets that. And I think one of the reasons why I do this is because I want to help men find that.
Okay, I'm here with a man named John Wineland. And John, for many of the people I think that listen to this show, you need no introduction. I mean, I was telling people earlier today, this guy was built for my show. My show was built for John. Evolving man. Like this is your life's work, and so in many ways, I may have never been so excited actually for an interview, and I'm grateful that you're taking the time to talk with me and to share your wisdom. And yeah, I'll just start with that. Thank you for being here, John.
Thank you, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
So I think maybe a good introductory question would be, what is your mission in the world right now? What are you here to do? And if you want to add, how you got here,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever length summary you want to make, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I always flub these like describe what you do or what are your mission questions. So, but I'll try to
Yeah.
give it some coherence. Um, I teach about consciousness and embodiment and spiritual intimacy, and I think my mission these days is to really take people deeper into the experience of themselves and then relationships, and obviously the primary relationship being with yourself and then other and then the divine and whatever you call the divine. And and so in a broad explanation, I try to do that really using the tools of embodiment and yogic intimacy and meditation and spiritual practice that I've learned over the years.
Hmm.
So my my skill set tends to come everything from, I did, a couple of years of very deep work with a Toltec shaman. I've done 13 years of training with David Deida. I've had, 30 plus years of Buddhist practice of my own since I was a kid. And then I picked up various modalities and pieces along the way. Um, Most recently, working with a martial arts sifu, and it's all about, I'm trying to take everything that I think will be beneficial, especially to men in sort of finding themselves at this really crucial juncture of history, and then help them be more present, more available, more aware in relationship. But I do a lot of
Hmm.
work with co-ed with women too. I run a women's program. I run co-ed's work. So,
Hmm.
man, I'm just in the muck of, I'm in the on the front lines of love and consciousness,
Yeah.
and doing my best to help.
Yeah. You run amazing workshops. Shalina and I did your Valentine's weekend workshop. It was a 3-day thing where David joined you for some of it, and an impeccable container was what really came up for me.
Mm.
There was a pointed perfection to the flow of each moment, And when you handed things off to somebody else, it was just kind of perfectly set up.
Mm,
um, Amir, your friend, uses the term impeccable container, and that really resonated with me.
mm-hmm.
And we went deep that weekend, man. I mean, you were just a guy on a screen, and so was
Yeah,
everyone else. But
right.
you really helped us drop in together, and so yeah, for anyone
Mm.
listening who wants to go deep with their partner energetically, John's the guy to do it.
Yeah. We got one in July. If I can just do a quick plug,
Hmm.
we have an online workshop in July. So if anybody hears this before mid-July and wants to have that experience, jump in.
Hmm. And I would say the reason why I've caught you at this moment and been able to snag an hour or 90 minutes of your time is because you've written a book. You've written a book called From the Core, and it's a book for men. And
Yeah.
you shared in your intro about the work that you're doing in the world, and I just want to ask you why. Why are you dedicated to helping men?
Yeah. Well, I think most of us, I don't know. I mean, I don't know your story, but most of the people that I run across, and this is certainly true for me, whatever our wound is in the world, we tend to turn it into a gift if we're lucky later on in life.
Hmm.
And I grew up in the 70s, 70s and 80s with, my father bailed when I was quite young. My grandfathers died when I was young. And so I had really no male role models. My stepfather was killed when I was 10. You know what I mean? Like, it just was a really tragic experience with men at a young age.
Hmm.
And so this deep wound of not having, the male nutrient, the masculine, the texture of masculine love that's so important. It was a very deep wound for me. And throughout my 20s and, throughout my teens and 20s, I turned to drugs and alcohol. I was a hot mess in through college and after college. And finally I got sober, you know, um, I got sober when I was 29,
Hmm.
and fell into a group of men who, who I met with pretty much every day for almost 10 years at lunch.
Wow.
And we would have lunch, we'd talk about life, and we'd support each other. And that was my introduction into what it was like to be held by a group of men. And it completely changed my life. And then from that group, these guys started to turn me on to deeper men's work that they were doing on the side outside of recovery.
Hmm.
Um, and one of them handed me when I was talking about my relationship woes, he handed me a book called The Way of the Superior Man, which was David Deida's, seminal book. And so and another guy, introduced me to a men's group where we went out into the woods with bats, plastic bats, and got down with, beat on pillows and screamed and yelled and
Yeah.
cried together. And so I just got blessed with this amazing, man after man after man after man that really showed me what it was like to be a father, to be a successful businessman, to be a good son. And I just lapped that shit up. And so I really drank it up for 10, 15 years, studying with people, all the men's teachers that I could find. Um, and for about 15 years, I guess I lapped it up. And then around 15 years into it, I started to get the impulse to give it.
Hmm.
And so I started to run men's groups in Santa Monica. Sometimes I'd have 3 guys showing up. Some
Hmm.
guys I'd
Yeah.
have 25. Every once a month I'd run a little workshop, and I started to get a little bit of momentum. And around 7 or 8 years ago, it turned into a full-time offering, and that's kind of what's led me to you. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, I mean, I gave a little bit of history there, but I really I really was blessed to find men in my life that filled that father wound.
Hmm.
And not everybody gets that. And I think one of the reasons why I do this is because I want to help men find that.
Yep.
And it's one of the reasons why, starting men's groups and supporting, men's groups and men's work, and is a big it's a big part of the book.
Yep.
I give my experience on that and why it's important and how to do it. But
Yep.
because so many men have father wounds,
Hmm.
either
Hmm.
abusive fathers, neglectful fathers, absent fathers, and I want to give them a space for healing.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think I would imagine that you see a lot of problems in the world from the same lens that I do, in that when you see mass shootings or you see
Yeah.
men acting out of integrity in some way in their lives, it's so painful to watch, because you know that the solution for you could be the solution virtually for every man in one way or another. And
I'm
uh,
heavily biased that way.
yeah, yeah,
I imagine
me
you are
too.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, when I read in the beginning of your book where you said, I'm on a mission to start 10,000 men's groups worldwide, and I was like, this guy's mission's my mission. Like, I have to talk to this man, because it I also see this as, the women. I'm not involved with women's work. I don't know what women need to go to their next level, to evolve. But for men,
Yeah.
men's groups is it's the container, it's the technology that uh, can facilitate men stepping into their next level of evolution, one small group at a time.
Yeah.
So I very much resonate with that, and also with the sentiment that when I help you heal, I heal. Right? Like, your wound becomes your gift, and when you have worked through it sufficiently enough to carry the medicine that you have to other people,
Yeah.
there's like almost like a re-healing every time. For me, like, that's what gives me passion, is watching guys break through and find their next level, or with addiction recovery, seeing people find sobriety and find freedom. that
Yeah.
just that gets me going, like, that gets me excited, that keeps me alive, and it's like a part of me heals each time I watch someone else heal
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
um
Yeah. I had an experience the other day. I was in Colorado with the men's group that I lead, and there was 40 of us hiked up to this alpine lake, 11,000 feet, and the guys were so trusting of each other and bonded by that time that by the time we got up to this big lake, nobody there. They all stripped off their clothes, got butt naked, jumped into the lake, swam in this ice cold lake, whooping and hollering, and just so happy and so free. And somebody asked me today what that was like for me, and watching them, a container that I'm holding, have that experience, and it was so. It's like you said, it's so healing for me to feel men find freedom. Very
mhm.
simple, just hanging out with dudes you love and trust in nature, having this really beautiful experience of aliveness.
Yeah,
And yes, you're right, Ben. Like that's very healing for me, and that's a big reason why I keep coming back.
yeah, yeah. I also resonated with, in a way, like, your path there.
Mm,
Growing up in a home where the masculine in my home, there was two masculine representatives, and one was very absent, passive, disconnected emotionally, and
mm.
intentionally, like, taking space. I found out recently, this is my dad. He told me, like, I've been, like, intentionally avoiding intimacy with you my whole life. Just he
Now
just
he
came out and said
recognizes
it.
it. Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Dad.
Well, yeah, and in a way, it's like he was like, yeah, and I was like, wow, that hurts so badly, because I've never actually heard you say that. Um, and my brother, which was dangerous for me, dominant, and in my teens, got into drugs,
Mm,
lost, very lonely in my life. Ended up in rehab at age 16,
wow.
and had some really great masculine mentors, male
Mm,
mentors.
mm,
In there, we had a guys group
mhm.
where we would go really deep with each other. We'd get into secrets and, like, all the stuff you don't talk about when the other half of the treatment center was around.
Yeah.
And we talk about our dads, and we'd cry. Like, it was very intimate. And I learned that depth that you can go to with other men in that sort of safe masculine container. and went to AA for 15 years. And
Wow.
and along the way made friends. Was always going to men's groups in AA. I found that was sort of the most powerful
Yeah.
container rather
Yeah.
than the mixed groups. And same as you, I had some friends that were into some other stuff, and I started getting other ideas about stuff outside of that program, which can be that program can be a little bit sort of
Yeah.
constricting. If you want to
Yeah.
explore everything, it's not really for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I took the step out, and that's yeah, that's when I went to my next level of evolution and started doing deeper spiritual practices. So
Yeah.
and that's when I really got into men's work, right? Because the men's work hole was kind of filled for me in AA. And
Hmm.
then I stepped out, and then a couple years later I was like, oh, I'm kind of missing that container. And I tried to throw a few together myself, and it wasn't quite working. And then I found a brotherhood that worked, and I joined, and then I became a leader, and then I sort of worked my way up, and now I can't stop. I can't stop. It's become
Well,
part of my mission.
well, if you,
Yeah.
here's the thing about men's work that I wish men could get, like normal guys could get this, right? I mean, you and I are pretty normal dudes. We're pretty much dudes, right? We're
Yeah.
not yogis in an ashram or, you know,
Yeah.
but I think what a lot of men don't realize is how deep your needs can get met in a really good men's group or men's program, right? The need of being seen, the need to be fully expressed, the need to, really feel depth, from another human, especially another man. Like there's very deep needs that get filled in men's work that I don't see filled anywhere else. Not going to the Lakers game with your buddies, not going on a camping trip. You know what I mean? There's the structure of intentional depth. And I try to write about this in the book, but that's something that I think most guys don't realize they don't even know they're missing it.
Yes, they
They don't
don't
even know
even
they're missing
know
it.
that
Women
those.
do. Yeah,
Yes.
women do. The women
Yeah.
do, but they
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys don't even know. They don't know what they're missing in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big. I mean, that's I think the plug for men's work is there are needs. Most guys show up to men's groups when they either feel like they're lost in some life's realm of life's purpose, or they have no idea what the feminine is asking for from them, and so they feel sort of this. And this is certainly how I got here. They feel this realization like, wow, I don't know something that is really important if I want to have a deep, loving relationship.
Yeah.
There's something I'm missing that my father didn't teach me, that I didn't get
Mhm.
modeled in my parents. And I need to find what that is. And that's what a lot of guys show up looking for.
Mhm. That deeply resonates. I remember when I went to the open house for the men's group that I ended up joining 7 years ago. We went around the circle. There was about 30 guys there, and each guy was asked to just explain, why are you here? Why are you interested in a men's group? Some guys were saying, I want more accountability in my life. I'm in a business transition right now, or I'm just addicted to personal growth and I want to see what this is all about. Um, and for me, I said to the guys, I'm about 9 months into a relationship with the most powerful woman I've ever been in a relationship with. We have great sex. She's a boss in so many ways. She's amazing. She's self-expressed, she's intelligent, she knows what she wants, she's strong. She's a strong woman, and I think I could sabotage this thing. I might not make it through this without a group
Mm,
of support, and that's why I'm here. And
mm,
it was perfect. It came into my life at the perfect time. I'm quite confident this relationship would not have worked out,
mm,
and I'm now married to that woman. So it was sort of perfect timing for me. But when I tell that story to other men, and when in a large group where there's an open house, there's like hands fly up, like, yeah, that's me too. This is why I'm here. That there's the biggest mystery in my life is my romantic partner. I'm trying to understand this person, and I'm trying to understand how to be in uh, a symbiotic relationship, or you know, with this person.
Yeah.
with the conundrum of like they're the opposite from me, and in some ways they want the opposite things from me, and they're asking me to give them things that I don't know how to give. It's like they want, like, does she want me to be like her, or like she's taking me to my edge,
Mm,
and I don't know how to go past it, and I need
mm,
help. So, I mean, you're the guy to ask these questions. You're the you're the guy who has some of the tools that I think help men find how to go past that edge. So, um, yeah, I mean, the question I want to ask is, what is the masculine core to you, and why is it important in this work?
mm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be in the book, I try to define these terms as clearly as I can. And this is just, I will say this to every time I talk about this. I'm just presenting one framework
Mhm.
to work from. And I'm really trying to talk about the principles of masculinity and why they're important. And just to be really clear, so we can say this, that the masculine exists in all humans, not just men, just like the feminine exists in all humans, not just women, and however someone might identify gender wise. So every woman has a masculine essence too, and a feminine essence. Which one they relate to more, which one they're drawn to more, that's a matter of each person's, genetics, epigenetics, upbringing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can have men, and I talk about this in the book, who are maybe even slightly on the feminine side. I actually consider myself to be one of those. I have a lot of masculine capacity, but my natural tendency is flow, more
Mhm.
flow
Mhm.
than stillness. I've had to learn stillness. So I just want to lay that out a little bit, that these principles are not meant to be value judgments. They're human and natural phenomena, stillness versus movement,
Mhm.
emptiness versus energy.
Mhm.
uh, that you can think of the deepest black hole versus this exploding nova,
Mhm.
supernova. So the masculine and feminine exist in all phenomena, exist in every human being, and we get to the yoga of it is to develop capacity to express deeper, more energy, sensitivity, intuition through your body, and also to express more stillness, depth, expansiveness, spaciousness, consciousness. And
Mhm.
so the masculine side of the spectrum is that the part of us that is still and unchanging, the part of us that is infinite and, infinite consciousness, the part of us that is, the witness behind the witness.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the more we're tapped into or connected to that part of ourself, the part that's unchanging, expansive, and infinite, the more we are connected to our innate masculine. Now, the more we're connected to that which is flowing and that which is moving and that which is changing completely all the time, moment by moment, new energy, new sensations, new thoughts, we're connected to the feminine.
Mhm.
And this is first in ourself and then in other, right? So the masculine essence is really the part of us that is never changed and never will,
Mhm.
and is still and full and complete. Just, consciousness is whole and complete, doesn't need anything. And the more we can feel that in our bodies, the more, just turns out, and I've seen this in workshop after workshop, the more that the feminine trusts us. And the
Mhm.
more we can transmit consciousness, and I think we did this in Valentine's Day, where you find that infinite essence and then you transmit it through your breath, through your eyes, through your body, the more the feminine feels safe to express and be.
Uh-huh.
So
Mhm.
I don't know if that got totally to your question. It's a huge, topic that we keep trying to unpack more and more.
Mhm.
But and a lot of this, David Data had a lot of, I mean, he's talking about universal principles. He just happened to be the guy who was able to just define them in ways that we can all understand.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
these principles have been around since the birth of time.
Yes.
He didn't invent
He
those,
he did not invent them, and again, I'm very excited for your book to come out because Data wrote The Way of the Superior Man in the 90s. What was it? 91,
97, I think.
97, and he was young. He was a young man, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Here you
yeah,
are.
40s.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
here you are, a man with more experience, having studied, taken his work, integrated that, and sort of taught it to groups over, a decade or a couple decades.
Yeah.
Um, and it's 2022, and you're bringing it through with all of our new understandings and the current language.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a resonance there. I know that there's going to be a resonance there where where the way of the superior man might feel a little bit like, definitely more esoteric, and a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more like last generation in a way, so
Mm-hmm.
um if there was any part of your mind while you were writing this book that was like, oh, I'm not saying anything new, because I know authors do this. My wife just wrote a book. She just released it
Yeah.
last week. And to
Yeah.
her and to me, her book is there wasn't really much new in there when I read it, and there was not much there that was new for her, because I've been on that journey with her, and to her it's
Yeah.
just old news,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is not old news to most people. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Good to remember that. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I basically been just, I put in the book everything I've been teaching and practicing for
Yep.
myself over the last 10 years. So it's good to know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the core, yeah, like what you were describing, masculine, feminine, definitely resonates for me in my relationship. I think it's fairly typical. Uh, but I was imagining myself. There's a mountain here on Salt Spring Island called. It's not quite a mountain. It's a Mount Maxwell, and you can run up that thing in about half an hour if you're quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I love running, and I love taking the dog out there and just like charging through the woods. But when I get back and I'm sitting down and I'm in this sort of peace and contentment, I feel most myself. I very much feel myself when I'm out there running and I'm in that sort of flow and that sort of a semi adrenaline state.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing like that contentment afterwards, sitting in
Yeah.
the stillness, and,
Yeah.
um, the analogy also transfers over to sex as well. It's like masculine embodied people tend to be, uh, you know, in a way, it's like we're chasing the pop for the relief that's on the other side of the pop, in a way, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
this like this feeling of nothing,
Yeah.
nothing to do, nowhere to be. Like that's where I'm at my most
Yeah.
content, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So,
Well, I think part of what I'm trying to put forth in the book might be a little different than how David worked with it. But, and again, Dave, I'm not representing David at any, I mean, I reference him in the book, but I'm not representing his ideas. He probably doesn't even agree with a lot of, in fact, I know he doesn't agree with all of what I'm saying.
yeah,
So,
right.
but one of the things I think that's core for today's generation of men is the integration of our own feminine, right? And the way that a real practical way to think about what that means is um, awareness. Like the masculine gift is awareness. The masculine tool is awareness. The masculine gift is awareness. The masculine um, way of penetrating the world is with awareness, right? And the feminine gift is energy, is sensitivity. Now, the more that we become vital, like you talked running up the hill, right? Running up the mountain with your dog and really feeling, the more vital you are, that's actually your feminine, right?
Hmm.
That's energy. It's the feminine. It's energy that you're cultivating. You cultivate all this energy, and it's pouring through your veins and you feel alive and vital and all that. And then you come and you marry it, you unify it with stillness, with infinite silence, and it becomes this really beautiful perfection,
Hmm.
like just vitality, energy, fully amplified, fully, and that takes effort. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it takes getting off the fucking couch. It
Hmm.
takes putting down the phone. It takes moving, breathing, and then the stillness piece. It, you know, takes effort as well to train the mind to be pointed and aware. And when men in particular can feel both of those things, infinite stillness and infinite vitality, they are on fucking fire.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
is part of what I'm hoping guys will get from this book, is that it's a cultivation of both those things simultaneously and then integrating them that gives you your best shot at living the kind of life that you want to live.
Hmm. And you put enough of those men out there into the world, you put enough of those men in powerful places, in leadership in the world, and you get a holarchy rather than a patriarchy, which holarchy is a word
Beautiful.
that you mentioned in the book, which I
Yeah.
loved.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, and yeah, and this whole arc is a unified. You know, I mean, what Jung was talking about this years ago, right? And you know, this unified feminine essence in us, right? And also too, for the same could be said, like a woman could pick up this book, or somebody who's not masculine identified who wants to develop their masculine more could pick up
Hmm.
this book and get the same thing, right? It just happens that more men are happen to be more masculine identified, but it's anybody who wants to get into these principles can hopefully benefit from them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have been chewing on this thing that you've been saying about men developing a relationship to their feminine, and
Mm.
that's not to be excluded from men's work. I've been chewing on that for a while because it didn't even occur to me in the beginning, and now the way that you talk about it and the way in which the feminine dances with the masculine inside of each of us, it's like you can't exclude the feminine. You
Yeah.
must acknowledge it, and we're already doing that in my men's groups. Like, we're doing breath work, Wim
Hmm.
Hof. It's like
Hmm.
this sort of energy, silence,
Yeah. Yeah.
energy, silence, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And you
yeah.
want to bring, ultimately, you want to bring the silence and the stillness and consciousness into your lovemaking, into this conversation, for example,
Hmm.
into your work, into all the aspects of your life, where what most of us do, men and women, and I see this all the time, is we'll either be will be in the experience, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we'll drop consciousness, or we'll lose ground, or we'll drop breath, right? And so training ourselves to stay grounded, have fuller breath, be aware of the infinite, even when we're making love
Hmm.
or tussling or in a deep conversation. You know, that's the integration that I think has been missing in men's work, right?
Yep. That is
Um,
the trickiest thing, to stay awake when your default mode wants to kick on and just take over. Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. When your pattern, like when your
Mhm.
pattern wants to grab hold of the moment, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that's a big. I think that's the big challenge. So many men that I meet, that's their challenge, right? Like, how do I stay non-reactive? How do I ground and deepen when she's coming at me? Or
Yeah.
how do I, or the life is falling apart, or the stock market just dipped 30% or whatever, Bitcoin
Hmm.
lost, you know,
Hmm.
80% of its value. You know,
Yeah.
how do I stay grounded, you know, aware, in equanimity, to use a
It- it-
Buddhist term.
right. And like, how do I find peace and bring that to this relationship, rather than just sort of like walking into this relationship and dumping my stress in one way or another, energetically dumping my stress onto my partner.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And, and,
yeah.
and I think the thing that hopefully the book will convey is that that journey starts with internal work. It has to start with yourself. You have to be able to bring your awareness to your emotional body and wrap it. You know, you have to be able to shepherd your own feminine, I guess is the way that I put it, in
Mhm.
order to then be welcome to shepherd the feminine in another or in the world.
Uh-huh. Yes. So yeah, you've got to do your own work. You got to do your own work and get better at holding your own feminine so that you can hold the feminine in your life.
Mhm.
And I the feminine representatives that I know can feel my ability. They know exactly where my edge is in terms of
Yeah.
how much I can hold them or not,
Hmm.
and they will let me know. They will let
Hmm.
me know when they see my edge. And my my partner was like, "Hey, yeah, you should join the Samurai Brotherhood." At the time is what it was called. You know,
Yeah.
like you do need this, you know, like I want you to go. I'm down to release you for 1 to 2 nights per week if you go do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate with that. There's an exercise that we do sometimes where we line guys up and we have them do Wim Hof breath work while facing one another.
Hmm.
And so you breathe, you breathe, you breathe, then you hold and you eye gaze with one another. And my tendency when I start to get about when I start to get past a minute is my consciousness wants to dip. Like my body literally wants like kind of like wants to go to sleep. And sometimes I wake up and I'm like, then I breathe in, right? And so the challenge in that scenario is to stay eyes open, looking at your partner and stay connected to him and hold your consciousness open while while it literally wants to sort of drop off, and
Hmm.
you sort of hold each other and then you breathe in together. First guy who breathes in,
Yeah.
the partner matches him.
Yeah.
Um, Beautiful moments of connection with other men in that scenario. And
Yeah. I imagine.
it's a physical manifestation of the work that you're talking about, you know, being able to
Yeah.
stay open, stay conscious when you want to go to sleep.
Yeah, you want to check out, or I mean, I'll have guys hold poses. I'm sure you
Yeah, yeah.
experienced that in our world. I'll have guys hold poses and try to stay heart open when their shoulders are burning or when they're feeling exhausted and they have to stay open, because the masculine, so much of this work that's required is nervous system training, right? And nervous
Uh-huh.
system training involves breath, movement, relaxation, some version of training your nervous system to be able to metabolize more experience, more
Mhm.
sex, more success, more abundance, more of somebody else's pain. The whole point of getting wider is so that you can metabolize more experience. And I think
Mhm.
that's part of what you're doing, the Wim Hof, the breath work, and the all I mean, I'm a breath nerd, so all the different breath practices are meant for our nervous systems to get stronger.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I love how you talk about this in the book. It's like doing this work on your own, bringing lots of energy and in a way like a stressful, challenging situation, and holding the pose,
Hmm.
holding, staying, holding, hold fast, uh, helps you develop a level of grit and strength to withstand the heat at some kind
Yeah.
of heat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that translates to like holding the pose in relationship, like when the heat's up, when fur is flying,
Yeah.
can you hold the pose, or are you going to lose consciousness and fly off the handle and go
Yeah.
back to your default mode?
Yeah. 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 And when guys get that the training that they do, it's not working out. It's
Right.
not like endurance. You know what I mean? There's a certain level. It's a different musculature. And when guys get that nervous system musculature is what makes it easier for them to breathe in their crying child, or their upset partner, or just life's trials and tribulations, I think something clicks and they're like, oh, okay, now I see why holding a man in a challenging pose while he breathes, relaxes, opens his heart, stays open to the moment, feels the infinite, is a real capacity training. And
Uh-huh.
elite athletes have been doing it. I mean, that's if you go to Navy SEAL training, once they get past the physical stuff, they're literally being asked to stay in very challenging situations while maintaining a calm nervous system.
Uh-huh.
We're just we're just adding relationship. We're adding relationship to that.
Yeah. The relationship piece is the storm. It's the stressor,
Yes,
right? It's the
yes, yes,
trigger.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, many portals here into talking about relationship. And um, so, yeah, I think maybe a good start would be, how does a modern man lead in relationship with a
Mm,
powerful woman these days in 2022? I think this is a
yeah,
very confusing landscape for men, and
totally.
men want to be powerful and strong, and they want to be everything their partner wants them to be. And there's been a lack of training, a lack of
Yeah,
mentorship, a lack of elderhood in our
yeah,
society,
yeah,
um, and a dismantling of patriarchal power structures and corruption, and um, the Me Too movement. And there's thinking away, like, men are spooked.
yeah,
How do we rest in our power in relationship with women, especially strong,
yeah.
powerful women?
Yeah, man. I mean, that I think that is I think you're right. That is the primary issue that men are facing in relationship for the most part, especially with powerful women. Um, I mean, all women are powerful. Feminine is just a powerful force.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the the easy answer to this, there's so much nuance, right? But the easy answer to this is the capacity to be more sensitive, meaning to feel more,
Oh,
feel what's going on in her, to feel what's going on in you, to feel what's going on in the relationship, to feel what's happening in the moment. And so the way I define leadership is the capacity to feel the field of, let's just say, your relationship, could be your business, could be your church, could be your men's group, right? But to feel the field of a field of experience, her, you, the relationship, children if you have it, and then bring your awareness to that sensitivity, right? And then from that, we can start to discern what's needed for there to
hmm,
be openness, truth, liberation, love. And when we get good at being uber sensitive, and I'm not saying sensitive, I don't mean emotional. A lot of people misunderstand that. I'm not
yeah.
saying uber emotional. I'm saying uber, like a ninja is sensitive.
Hmm.
A ninja walks into a room and can feel a feather floating down, right?
Yes.
To be sensitive to our the field that we're responsible for, but then bring our awareness to that sensitivity, we start to get impulses, um, inspirations. She needs dot dot dot. She needs, or my children need more of this, or she needs this kind of love, or she needs this kind of space, or she needs this kind of support, or she needs to be praised, or she needs to be ravished, or she needs
Hmm.
to be, you know, given, just she needs to be followed. There's
Yep.
any number of possibilities are there, but the more sensitive we are, the more and the more aware we are, we're feeling the moment, feeling her. We're not in that moment necessarily acting from our pattern.
Hmm.
We've superseded our pattern with the training of sensitivity and awareness that we've cultivated, And so the decisions we make, although they may not all be perfect, they're going to definitely trend in the direction of, let's say, leading a moment, right? No, I want to say nobody should lead a relationship. A
Mm-hmm.
relationship should be co-led, you know, it based on what each partner wants, right? But moments can be led, right?
Mm-hmm.
And discerning when a moment needs leadership from us, or when a moment could be a period of the relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
That takes training, and it takes awareness, and I think most guys are lacking in that area.
Yeah.
Not desire, they want to. Like you probably meet guys all the time, like, I want to love her well, I want to give her my leadership when we need it, when she needs it. I want to be able to lead sexually when it's called for, or lead romantically when it's called for. So I want to be able to. It's funny because I was talking with my partner about this yesterday, and she's very vocal you know, about this. Like, I don't always want to be led. She's very
Right.
clear. I don't
Yeah.
always want to be led. And I'm like, I totally get it. But the times that you do want to be led, you really don't want to have to think about it, right?
Yeah.
And if that period, and this oftentimes is often, certain parts are sexual. Like, if you talk to enough women, they'll say, I want to be able to go mindless in
Mm-hmm.
sex.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of being led can sometimes get charged, but if you ask a woman, do you want to just absolutely surrender all decision making and go mindless sometimes during sex? Is that really important to you? Almost all of them that I have spoken to will be, fuck yes, that is absolutely important to me. And that's their feminine.
Mm-hmm.
That's their feminine. So learning how to discern, I think leadership is really learning how to know, you know, being sensitive enough to feel when your partner needs to let go of holding, right? Holding
Mm-hmm.
her nervous system, holding her career, holding her body in a certain position, holding her awareness, and to be able to step in and go, baby, I got it. Like, you just be.
Mm-hmm.
That's good leadership. And that, I think, that's a currency that a lot of women are craving.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that all men have the capacity to be sensitive like this. It just requires training. It requires doing the work that you need to do to turn up your sensitivity knob, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you think about a guy who's like tense and dense, I mean, no fault of his own, just whatever. He's big and chick, he's going to feel less. He's not going to be able to feel the fluctuations or he can't breathe. He doesn't breathe very deeply.
Uh-huh.
So just learning to breathe more deeply enhances your body's ability to sense.
Mm-hmm.
If that's all a guy gets from this conversation, just slow your breath down and deepen it, and you will be more sensitive to yourself and your environment. But of course, there's a lot more training that's possible. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, guys can train their bodies to be more sensitive, and their
Yeah.
awareness.
So breath is one of the portals, right? That's one of the tools that you can use, and there's 1,000 different types of breath work that you can get into to expand your sensitivity and understanding of your breath, your, let's say, your relationship to your breath, because most of us have an unconscious relationship to our breath. It's just been happening since the day we were born, and we've never done it intentionally. So,
Yeah.
what else can a man do to increase his sensitivity, or not do? Let's say,
Mm,
like what,
mm.
what might guys need to get rid of if they want to be more sensitive?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, just to make it simple, and I think most guys will get this, get the fuck out of your head, right? When you're thinking, right? Am I doing it right? Is this what she wants? Am I going to fail? You know what I mean? When we're thinking about ourselves, we're not very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Our awareness is basically folded in on itself and is now self-centered, right? Self-referenced, self-centered. So becoming aware of the ground, and I go through this a lot in the book, some of these techniques. So grounding, becoming aware. So deepening your breath, feeling into the ground, like feeling your lower body, pressing your lower body into the ground, relaxing. Relaxing actually heightens sensitivity tremendously. And then moving your body in a way that creates more openness, more width, more
Mm-hmm.
depth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and these are infinite practices. There's no end to how deeply you could. I mean, there is, you can only breathe so deep, but the practice of it, you can always gesture towards a deeper breath.
Yeah.
You can always gesture towards more relaxation. You can always gesture towards like heart sensitivity, like feeling your heart is like a, this is going to maybe scare some of the guys off, but your heart is like a sonar, right? And if you bring awareness into your heart, you can literally start to feel the space you're in from your heart rather than from the head.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates, like a sonar will receive signals, ripples, right? Your heart will receive those things too. And so I would challenge any man listening to this to just go into the room, right? Go into the living room, start deepening his breath into his lower abdomen, feel down through his lower body into the earth, and then start relaxing his heart open into the space like a sonar.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me he can't feel the space more fully.
Yeah.
The and then when his partner walks in or the kids come in or blah blah blah, he can actually feel them. And from that place, what happens is he'll start to get intuitive hits like, this would be right, or this would be good, or this is beautiful, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you'll feel, so many men are so locked in here and here, we're just doing this,
Yes.
um, that we aren't actually feeling our partners or our lives in ways that are inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole sensitivity thing, I think, is crucial. It's just selling men on it, sometimes can be tricky.
Yeah, and I think as a man, just taking the time to do the practice, because I live in the same world that you do in a way, and it's just there's infinite distraction and uh, YouTube and my phone pinging, and even just on my land here, there's just like endless to-do lists. There's like endless things to stress about, you know, and so in terms of like taking things away, like I have to personally, like some things that have worked for me is like spending hours or a day let's say, away from my
Yeah,
phone and away from my
for
computer, away
sure.
from screens,
For sure.
um, and also paying attention to like what I'm putting into my body. I've done diets in my life where I basically took everything out that was loud and got really quiet, really bland. No salt, no garlic, no ginger, no lemon, no
Mm,
vinegars, like just the most bland, mushy food. But what was interesting was that the volume of the world went up
yeah.
and everything got really loud for me. And I became a little bit more touchy emotionally and
Hmm.
feeling a little bit more overwhelmed. I struggled to like work a full work day like I was also not drinking coffee and eating chocolate, which I do quite a bit. Um, so just playing with that, like the removal of some things, like asking yourself, like, oh yeah, what's super loud or numbing me in my life right now?
Yeah.
And that is, that could be your easiest starting point. My for me in my body, alcohol closes my consciousness.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of the nature of the chemical. You take enough of it, you can't walk straight, or see straight.
Hmm.
And so it actually shuts my ability to connect down. It turns my sensitivity down even further. So I don't touch alcohol.
Hmm.
Um, for other people, you might experience something different, but the point is there something that you're using that is actually removing your sensitivity? And could you start there and then add breath,
Yeah.
relaxation, and feeling into your heart like you're describing on
Yeah.
top of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. A numbness inventory would be a beautiful thing for a guy, every human really to do, not just men.
Yeah.
But a numbness inventory where you're just like, hey, here, list 20 things, 20 habits or pieces of technology or things that you do that actually make you less sensitive,
Hmm.
and start ticking them off. And shallow breathing could be one. But I think that numbness is it's the great plague of the modern man, unfortunately. And I'm
Yeah.
guilty too. I'm no saint here. I have a phone. I have habits. I have addictions to technology like everybody else. But I am very clear that there has to be breaks, like you said.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you've had enough moments of absolute aliveness
yeah,
without those things to know, like, oh yeah, like now I know where I need to get back to. I want to like put the phone aside, put the screens aside, and yeah, maybe the consciousness altering chemicals aside, and go and connect deeply with the men's
yeah.
group or with my romantic partner. and
Mhm.
and for other folks where this is new to you, you've got a bit of an uphill battle. You've got to like force new ruts into your system. I use this analogy in addiction work a lot with guys. Is like you've like ground in a particular pattern into your brain. Like when I feel any kind of stress or whatever, I go to this thing, and we're going to take that thing away. And you got to like set new grooves, and there's an inertia there that you're going to be
Yeah,
fighting against. But every
yeah,
day you do the practice, the new practice is a win. You're grinding that new
yeah.
pattern in. So,
Well, there's a new on the subject of addiction. There's a generation, I think, just a generation younger than you,
mhm,
that is coming up now, that has the dopamine addiction that we didn't have,
right.
right? Like when I was growing up, in the 80s, even 90s, um, there weren't cell phones, there weren't really computers, the internet wasn't a thing yet, right? But now dopamine addiction has been, since Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Insta porn and everything. Men especially have this dopamine. Have I bet if you polled enough men, you'd find that the thing that they probably addictively, unconsciously do over and over again is check their phone,
Mhm.
and check their phone for the things that give them dopamine hits. So retraining, this is one of those things that men's groups and men's weekends are really good, is to retrain yourself to receive nourishment and vitality from things that are much deeper than you know how many likes did this post get, or how's Tesla doing, or whatever the thing is you need. you know um it's going to be more and more and more important.
Yeah, we need the way I'm seeing it is like we need a new generation of leaders that everywhere, all over the world, that are going
Yeah,
to be able to tackle this new challenge that this new generation is going through.
yeah.
So, just to touch back on relationship once
Hmm.
more, I'm going to quote you. Her endless yearning and desire for more is the answer as opposed to a problem to be solved. Please explain.
Yeah. um this is so tricky for men, right? um so let's say her desire is to be ravished and seen fully. Like that tends to be a very common desire I hear from feminine beings, to be ravished and seen completely. The men will often see that either as either as something that they're failing at,
Mhm.
or something, a burden to be accomplished, a burden to be added to, okay, I guess I work out, ravish my wife, you know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah.
it's on the checklist. and
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
we tend to expect the feminine to not be the feminine, right? So the feminine in all of us, and the more feminine identified, the more active this is. The feminine in all of us yearns for ever more love and ever more connection, right? And that's what makes them that's a trait of the feminine, just like the masculine. The masculine in all of us yearns for ever more freedom. So when I say that to guys, they get it. They're like, oh yeah, like
Hmm.
I'm always wanting to be more free to run up the mountain, more free to have money to do what I want to do, more free to have time. My desire for freedom is endless.
Hmm.
It's not a problem, right? Well,
Yeah.
her desire for love and ravishment and yearning for more is no more a problem than your endless desire for freedom.
Hmm.
So accept it, acknowledge it. It's not personal. It's
Yeah.
not personal. It's the essence. The more feminine she is, the more it's gonna all that ache is always gonna be there. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to defend.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes, we have this tendency to uh, look at the other and look at the sort of the opposite and want to solve that as a problem, because there's
They
this
try to do it to
feeling,
us too,
and
right?
they
Like,
try to do it to us. Like
yeah.
she wants all of me. She wants to, in some part of her, actually wants to take all of my freedom away. Like
Yes, exactly.
she wants me to
Yeah,
always be here and always be here for
yeah,
her and not have anything to do,
yeah,
right? She's honest enough with herself to be able to express that and say like,
yeah.
yeah, like sometimes I actually just want to consume you. I just want you to be mine 100%, just here all the time. Serve me, just give me love, just tickle me. For her, it's like, just tickle me from the moment you get up until the moment you go to sleep. Just follow me around, tickle me. Yeah, that's what she wants.
Tickle me with love. Yeah, 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 yeah. And but that's the
And,
great dance, right? That's the
yes,
great masculine and feminine dance. Yeah.
yes. And so what she wants, you've probably heard this, is like, uh, her, the thing she desires most will probably be the hardest thing for you to give. I think Harville and Helen Hendricks say this,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
relationship will become your nightmare in a way, because the duality that's built into the whole thing, it's just like it's an unsolvable game. Like I can't,
Yeah.
the desire she has, the amount that she wants to be loved and seen, I can't, I literally, I know I can't do
Yeah.
that much.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And
And hopefully she'll know that as well. But and I think this goes back to the leadership conversation, right? So
Mhm.
good good let's call it self-awareness. Not let's even remove leadership, but good
Mhm.
self-awareness is to know like, okay, I can give that to her with a willing and open heart 3 nights a week.
Right.
I can ravish the fuck out of her soul. I could, eat her heart, love her into dust 3 nights a week. And the rest of the time, I either have to be nourishing myself, taking care of my business or my purpose, serving my community. And then that's the time that I can really show up. And if you really show up to those 2 or 3 nights a week and you ravish the fuck out of her and give her everything you've got, that will usually be okay.
Yeah.
Even though of course she's going to want more, but
Mhm.
that's more just like it's usually more like a habitual response on her side,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if she feels it, if they feel that you're showing up for some periods of time and you're aware enough to know this is what I can give you and you deliver, then they will respect and love that a lot. That's what I see all the
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just painted the ideal picture for men that I think is useful, because we need to be able to picture our dream life
Hmm.
where, like there's 3 nights a week where I'm fully giving myself to my partner and she's uber satisfied with it in those
Yeah.
moments. And the rest of the time, I'm dedicating myself to my work and I'm 100% over here.
Hmm.
I think the problem with most modern men is there's a lot of nice guys in my generation. And what nice guys do is they actually try to micromanage, and they're micromanaging their partner's feelings, right? They're always concerned with their partner's feelings, and so they're trying to make decisions like, oh yeah, if I do this, it'll make her happy. If I do that, and so we're self abandoning,
Yeah.
And we're doing that a lot. And so we're actually draining ourselves of energy to the point where we're not actually able to be fully present and dedicated to our partner because we're coming from an empty place 7 days a week.
Yeah, yeah. Rather than a full place 3 days. Yeah, and
Yeah.
men will abandon the running, like you mentioned, running up to the mountain, right, with your dog, right? I
Right.
imagine that's an incredibly nourishing, important piece of your week.
Yeah.
And men will abandon that in order to make their partner happy. Oftentimes, nice guy syndrome. It's funny. Robert Glover, who's been in my men's groups for a long time, is showing up tonight to my house for a men's for we're doing a writers retreat this weekend.
Awesome.
So the nice guy and read his book. I'm sure the guys
Yes.
watch No More Mr. Nice Guy, because that's a really great explanation and understanding of how toxic and actually selfish that is, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. Robert's been on my show. I think he was episode 50 actually. And
I think, yeah, yeah,
I have multiple copies of that book because it's
yeah.
one of the first books that I give to guys because it just so accurately defines like the problem of our generation. And I also gave that book to my dad. And in a way, I think he was like triggered by it. He's like, I'm not a nice guy, but he's definitely a nice guy. Um,
Yeah,
yes. So that's yeah. I just think that's a very important point that men need to. And you make this very well in your book as well. And you tell a personal story about a time in your life where you were giving your everything to your business 6 days a week, and to your daughter at the time, who needed a lot of help. And then on the 1 day a week where you needed nourishment, you were giving yourself away to the
yeah,
in-laws for this like
yeah,
full family thing,
yeah,
and slowly building resentment,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And ending up empty and feeling like you have nothing to give to your family, and your partner feeling that from you and
yeah,
wondering what the hell's going on.
yeah,
Right. And so in hindsight, if I could if I'm paraphrasing this back to you or summarizing it, in hindsight, realizing like I would have been better off just saying like, no, I can't do this family obligation all the
yeah,
time, maybe once a month, but like I have to take care of myself so that I have something to give to this family. And
yeah,
this is what I need to do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the first step. But the second step, which I also didn't do because I just didn't know this stuff, was was when she would get back from her family gathering, like love her up, like
Mm,
be full enough to, when I take the time, like literally be responsible so that I'm not just numbing out watching TV the whole day,
yeah.
like literally fill myself up so that if she does give me that freedom, that when she shows up, I'm loving and present and able to, ravish her and love her
Yeah.
you know, and I think a lot of guys make that second mistake too, where they'll say, my time, and it'll be
Mhm.
kind of this, you know, demand of self-care. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're not showing up from that with something to give your partner, why in the fuck would she support it?
Yeah.
you know? And you
Yeah.
see this a lot I mean, I see this a lot in relationship, right? So the capacity to show up, to nourish yourself enough so that you can give
Mhm.
with an open heart, that's a big piece of learning to be successful in relationships.
Yeah. Uh, Building a power grid relationship versus something where you're sort of both draining the batteries, right? We
Yeah.
have that tendency to like look to our partner to just fulfill our desires, fulfill our needs. Like, oh, I don't want to give, like I want to take right now. And yeah, you're helping me see like I've got to hold the responsibility for my own self-care, not from a place of like being an island, but like just being my own parent in a way.
Yeah.
And then intentionally, like when I'm taking that time, being like, this is me time, this is me time, I'm giving me energy right
Yeah.
now, and the result of this is I'm going to give her energy, I'm going to serve her, and I'm going to
Well,
sort of
her being the world too, right?
yes, yeah,
Or your kids. And so many guys step into their relationship with play, let's call it, whether it's out in nature or with other men, or, you know, they step into that relationship from a place of like hungry ghost kind of thing, like
Uh-huh.
they're so beat up by life or burden, or when they step into it, it's almost like a bender, you know.
Yeah, right.
Just right? Sometimes a lot of alcohol is involved too, right? So it's like a bender, and they're just like, ah, like just give me experience, experience, right? But
Yeah.
it's not the same thing as showing up with the intention of being filled by her, by the great her,
Mhm.
so that when you step back into the world, you have something, obviously something to keep for yourself, right? For your own batteries and your own gas tank, but something to give the world. um, and I think men, it's just a reframe that I'm trying to give to a lot of men so that their partners feel good. Like here's what a woman said to me, a teacher of mine, a woman named Sophia Diaz, who's a wonderful teacher. She said, if she knows that you're going out to find God, whatever you call God, if she feels that you're going out to feel the great nature of all existence, she will bless it, right? If she feels you're going to, empty and, just do stupid shit, either get filled with other men or get filled with time, solitude, and nature, she'll bless it. But if she doesn't feel that, she will be resentful. And that
Mhm.
has been what I've seen time and time again.
Mhm. Because you're going to come back to her more depleted with even less to give, right?
Right. Which, why should she support it? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one of the things I've learned, in the last decade really was that the mark of a mature the mark of a king really is that
Mhm. Yeah.
he's in service to his community. He gives. He has something to give and he's contributing,
Yeah.
not just via whatever your work is that gets you paid in the world, but more
Mhm.
than that, like you
Yeah.
literally like building a kingdom around you and you're serving the next generation or you're serving your family or what have you. So
Yeah.
the king's
Well,
responsibility
yeah. Is
is
to is to fill the cup for the kingdom. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. I'll give an example. I mean, this is because guys are asking me like, what does this mean to you? And so, I live on a beach. I'm really lucky that way. I got like a dream place that I've always wanted in outside of LA. But part of the reason why I did it was for this, because, I had a coaching call before this and I was tired, and, I just ran a men's workshop. So in between the coaching call and our talk, I went out to the water, I jumped in the water, I swam, my body surfed, I listened to music, like I did all this stuff. And as I was doing it, it was really like I started to feel how my aliveness would be really cool to bring to this conversation.
Uh-huh.
And and but it would have been just as easy for me to lay down or space out on my phone, or, you know what I mean? And not that I'm any great example of all this. I've just had to discipline myself to be committed to doing whatever I need to do to be alive so that I can give more when it's
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. I very much appreciate that. And I feel that. I feel your aliveness on this call. And I did the same thing. I wasn't jumping in the ocean, but I was moving around and like getting my energy sort of riled up. And
Yeah.
it's one of the things that we ask guys to do in our brotherhood before they come on the call is like, hey, don't be on your computer for an hour before you get on with us.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Yeah.
show up to this group drained and like,
Yeah.
and then wondering why you're not getting anything out of it. Like you've got nothing to give. That's why you're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
giving? Amazing, man. Um,
Yeah. The
so
concept is take responsibility for your own nourishment. Right? I
exactly.
mean, if men could just get that, like, it's not her problem, it's not life's problem, it's not your work's problem, it's not your kid's problem. Take responsibility for your own nourishment, get creative with it, and everything will improve.
Yeah.
Ben and John guarantee it.
Guaranteed. Money
Yeah, yeah,
back guarantee.
yeah.
So as we move towards wrapping up, because like, yeah, I really feel like what you just said is like the summary of your book in a way,
Mhm.
like helping men take responsibility for their own nourishment, and like, here's the tools, here's the understanding, here's the framework.
Yeah.
Um, what is the depth council? There's a lot of guys that listen to this show that are like, they're in years into men's work. And so, I think it's probably worth sharing
Yeah.
about.
Well, yeah. Well, the Depth Council was a small. I wanted to do for a long time. Guys have been asking me to run a like. I've had all these personal men's groups that I've started. Where we get together. Usually, it's guys who've done a bunch of men's work. We get together. We do men's work. We support each other. We literally act like a men's group, like a small
Yeah.
men's group. It's usually 9 to 12 guys. And for a long time, men have been asking me to do that professionally. Like,
Yeah.
hey, run a group. Let's like run rather because most of my trainings have 40 to 100 men in them. So run a small group and we'll run it like a men's group and we'll meditate and we'll spend all our time out. We'll basically do everything that we're talking about here: meditate, time out in nature, sit in circle. And so that's kind of what I envisioned. And we just started it in May, and it's been great. It's been great. We have two more. We have a retreat in Utah, and then a retreat in Costa Rica.
Right.
And so it's really just trying to teach men these principles of self nourishment and self reflection, and also
Mm-hmm.
giving a space where there's a lot of room for deep practice.
Uh-huh. Beautiful.
Yeah,
And so it's
yeah.
like a 6 or 9 month container.
It's a 9 month men.
Yeah.
It's basically a 9 month men's group, right? Rather
Yeah.
than a training program, it's run like a men's group.
Awesome. Yeah. That,
We'll do it again next year. So any of you
good.
guys who are joining this want to
Yeah.
jump in. Okay.
Yeah. That's on my frequency. Yeah. I had a guy
Good.
ask
Yeah,
me
yeah,
today.
man. Yeah, you'd be great. You'd be great. It'd be good for you to be, in a group that you're not having to lead.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a guy ask us today, because we send out, guys apply to the brotherhood. We send them an email that says like, hey, here's kind of the deal, and let us know, what group would fit your time slot. And it's a paid group. Here's how much it costs, and like, there's a commitment involved. Like, we don't do drop-ins. He responded and said, "What do you mean you don't do drop-ins?" I said, "Well, here's what this means. It's like, there's a safety and an intimacy that's created when you create a container like that, and a structure where like you're seeing the same guys every week over and over. You're going deeper and deeper and deeper with one another, and you meet up in person, and then you're meeting again on Zoom. You're going deeper. That can't occur with the in and outs of a normal sort of, like a, let's say,
oh,
an AA meeting, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
you you have to create a structured container, and that's what I was missing. 7 years ago, when I was trying to throw my own men's group together, I was
yeah,
afraid to like plant my flag and say like, okay, here's the structure. Here's what we're going to do.
yeah,
We're going to do this many meetings. It's going to cost this much. Here are the rules. And like, if you don't like attend this many meetings, or if you don't let us know you're not going to be there or whatever, you're out. There's like
yeah,
ways you get kicked out,
yeah, yeah.
I
Love it.
used to think like, oh, well, if I did that, it's kind of like, it's like culty, but it's not. You have to have uh meticulous care put
Yeah,
into it, and structure, in order to have like a really solid container that can hold, that can
yeah.
allow you to go deep, right?
Absolutely, which is
I
why
love it.
we spend so much time on
Yeah.
containers. But that's
Yeah.
that's exactly it. Yeah, we had it. One men's group that I was in, we had an interview process where we turned out a lot of guys. Like we literally put him in front of the 8 of us, and we grilled him with questions. It was brutal. It was brutal. And the depth council, and teacher training, both the programs I do this year, like we rejected a few guys,
Yeah.
because it just didn't feel like the right fit. So
Yeah.
I think there's a real, and there's lots of places that are just open for men to come in, at least in my work. I'm sure in your work
Yep.
too, but it's not something. I'm not serving a man by not holding him to a high standard of integrity and participation.
Yes. 100%. I'm 100% behind that. Like, with the arc of brotherhood, there's always this question of like, how strict do we want the rules for engagement to be if we want to like reach all the men in the world, and we have to accept that like we're not going to,
Yeah.
we have to draw a line in the sand and then capture those men rather than just trying to capture everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
And
that
we,
can be the book or the
yeah,
podcast or the, you know what I mean? Like that, it's not like you're saying fuck all those guys. It's like you're like, for those that want to go deep, here's the structure, but you
uh,
got to show up and do the work.
yeah. And if you're on the frequency, jump on board. Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Well, yeah. Thank you, man, for your frequency, for your, uh, there's a humility in you in the way that you teach. There's a very, you're very real. Like it just doesn't, you don't, I may sometimes put you on a pedestal because I just love your work and you speak so eloquently sometimes, right?
Thanks, man.
But you are not on a pedestal. You're like, hey, I'm a guy. I'm a guy. And makes you very approachable. And I think for my generation, especially, we kind of, a lot of us need that. We're done with the pedestaling of
Yeah,
teachers,
please
right?
don't, please don't, because because I'm just a guy who's a few years down the road,
Yeah.
farther along than most guys, and so I'm just sharing what worked for me,
Yeah.
and I hope this book is helpful. I mean, that's all. I really just want it to be helpful for guys, the way that the books I read, especially the way the Superior Man was for me,
Hmm.
and I just hope it helps guys, feel like they have a path towards a deeper life and a more fulfilling life.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, may it be
I,
so.
yeah, maybe so. I will say, since I have a chance to do a little pitch on here, that apparently pre-ordering the book is important for the publisher. So if you watch this thing and you're excited to get the book, if you could pre-order it, that would certainly help me out because apparently Sounds True wants to see a certain amount of pre-order. Apparently,
Yep.
it's a big deal
It
how much
is.
gets pre-ordered. I'm sure, Shay just sort of went through this. So,
She did. She did just go through it. And the same thing that happened to you happened to her,
yeah,
where, you had a scheduled release date and so
yeah,
did she. It was supposed to be released in April. And then like a week before we get this notice like, hey, release date's delayed by 2 months. There's two
yes, supply
reasons
chain.
why. Like A,
Yeah,
supply chain, but B, I mean, at least we like to think this, that
yeah,
so many people were pre-ordering the book that, all the bookstores, they get a certain amount of copies, like they get to claim a certain amount of copies. And so
yeah,
when you get a certain number of people pre-ordering, then the publisher, the printer is like, hey, we can't fulfill on this by this date. Like we got to kick it down the
yeah,
road.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So,
I,
so
yeah,
it helps with authors. Apparently, it's part of the new game of
yeah.
pre-orders are part of the new game. So I'll just make that pitch for anybody watching if they want the book.
Yes, please do pre-order. And your book is scheduled to come out July 15th.
August 2nd.
Oh, August 2nd. Okay.
August 2nd. August
So
2nd.
pre-order before August 2nd. And honestly, folks, like another reason to pre-order is that it's possible that there will be no books left after the first week in certain places. Like this just happened to Shalina again.
Yeah, yeah.
It came out last week and there's no more books available in Canada.
Wow.
It's
Oh, I
like
didn't
on
know
back
that.
order. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And she in a way she was like, "Oh my god," and then yesterday we found out that it's a good thing and that she's on the list in Canada. She's on the bestseller list in Canada this coming
Awesome.
week, so it's
So
great.
glad. So glad. Go Shalina.
I have no doubt about that for your book as well. You have a lot of people that are super into your work, and I think that have been waiting for this book for about a decade. There's,
Mm,
in my brotherhood, a lot of times as a way of getting through the winter and keeping our meetings exciting, we'll study a book and we'll go
mm,
through one chapter per
mm,
week. Guys have to read a chapter between the calls, and then we get on the call and we either do an exercise from that chapter, we do a
mm.
shadow share or whatever, a practice maybe that you shared in that chapter.
Wow.
And so we do King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and
Oh, that's
the
great.
Way of the Conscious Warrior. And so I could definitely see a lot of men this winter studying your book, and I can't think of a better one. So
Great. Right on.
yes,
Thank you, Ben.
we will share the link to pre-order your book, and I'll get that from your team, and we'll put all the links in the bio, folks.
Thank you.
And other than that, your website is it johnwineland.com?
John, wine like you drink, land like you live on.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you're on Instagram.
On Instagram, and there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube. There's no short.
Yeah.
Yep. People probably want me to shut up, but there's so much content. So, but they can find it
Yep.
all. They can find it all on Instagram and YouTube. And I haven't hit TikTok yet, man. That's just not my. I can't do that.
Me
But
neither. And we're struggling over here because it's like we're watching the Instagram numbers go down because people are just leaving the platform for other things. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm seeing that happen on Facebook too. And I'm like, what's next? Like,
yeah.
other than TikTok, like what is next for us? I feel like there's something else.
I'm hoping the next thing just emerges because I
Yeah.
just can't bring myself to TikTok, but
Yeah.
maybe that'll change. Maybe that'll change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll just, just do whatever, make my own thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Create
man,
your own
thank you
platform.
very much for having me. It was really cool to meet you and talk to you and really enjoy what you and Shalina give to the world. So congratulations on being part of that really powerful partnership. That says a lot about you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. It's been so good to have you on the show. I could talk about this for days. I know you could too. So it's nice just to bump into one another here for 90 minutes. And I think there's some really high quality content here for a lot of guys. And yeah, like there's those niblets. There's stuff out there, John, that's like continuously passed around. Like your random thing at a workshop where you mentioned the feminine cleanse once, where that got
Right.
filmed and that got put into a video and then it got made into a blog post. And like almost every week I see men sending that to each other. Like, hey, try this, bro. You want to go deep? Like forget no porn, no masturbation for a week. Check
Right.
this out. It's like, this is all the way. So
Right.
yeah, keep the cameras in the room, man, and keep
Right.
capturing those moments. Cause it pays forever. Your work is out there forever working for you. So
Right on.
thank you again, brother, for being on the show. And
It's my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on. We'll do it again.
All right. All the best.